Good day and welcome back to the LLQP video series. What we're going to look at in this next segment will be segregated funds. Now we've already looked at way back in Module 6 mutual funds, and I want to just go back and review some of the basic concepts of mutual funds so that we can see that seg funds really are very similar. In fact, for the most part, a segregated fund works very much the same way that a mutual fund does. And for the purpose of learning segregated funds, you're better to put some of the concepts you learned in life insurance out of your head and really to only deal with the concepts you learned in Module 6 around mutual funds. I'll show you in a few minutes that there are some insurance characteristics to segregated funds, but they are fundamentally an investment product. They work like a mutual fund in that you put money into the fund. So we might have somebody who puts in some amount here. We'll use $1,000, although like a mutual fund, you can put money into a segregated fund anytime you want. You can put small amounts in or large amounts or whatever the case is. We'll just use $1,000 because it makes it pretty straightforward to see how this thing works. And we'll use today's date. We'll say this person puts this money in on the 7th of August of 2012. Now, as with a mutual fund, what you're hoping for here is that you make an investment and that investment increases in value. And as long as that happens, you do okay. Now, unlike a mutual fund, there are some guarantees available here. We'll look at those guarantees momentarily. And if this thing does increase in value, as you're hoping for, then you make money and you can take out that money at any time. Just like a mutual fund, you can put money in and take money out of a segregated fund whenever you want. And like a mutual fund, the value that's in the fund depends on the performance of the underlying investments, which might comprise stocks or bonds or money market instruments, or whatever is appropriate for your particular investment objectives. Now with segregated funds, I'll show you the differences here. The differences really start with the concept of a maturity guarantee. So if you make this investment in 2012, you know that at least 10 years out, it might be 15 years, it might be age 65 or 69 or 71, but we're going to use a 10-year guarantee for the ease of understanding here. So this contract we know is going to mature on the 7th of August of 2022. Now what does maturity mean? Well, maturity means that that date the contract ends. So when the contract owner, that's the original party who enters into the contract, our contract owner, or sometimes we can refer to this person as the policy owner, or quite often, as with life insurance, because this is still going to be an insurance contract of sorts, we refer to this person as the insured. And then we would have, as mentioned, the annuitant is the person who will receive those funds at maturity. Now the annuitant can also be known as the life insured, and as with most life insurance contracts, the annuitant and the contract owner will be the same person. Now the other thing that's going to happen, again as with most life insurance contracts, is that we are going to name a beneficiary, and of course, as with a life insurance contract, it's the contract owner who names the beneficiary, just as we would expect in any life insurance contract. Now, what's the significance of this maturity date? Well, the maturity date is when we would be able to obtain our maturity guarantee. What the maturity guarantee is, this is really one of the insurance elements of our segregated fund, or IVIC. The segregated fund is properly where the money is invested. The IVIC, the individual variable insurance contract, is the contract that the contract owner enters into. The two terms are generally used interchangeably, although on your exam you'll see it referred to as an IVIC. So let's say we're dealing with a 75% maturity guarantee, which is the most common type of maturity guarantee You will occasionally see 100%, but for exam purposes and even in real life for the most part, you're generally going to see 75% guarantees. And then on top of that, you'll have a death benefit guarantee. This is quite attractive, actually, this death benefit guarantee. The death benefit guarantee also locks in something of a worst case scenario, also usually 75%, but it can be 100% as well. And I'll show you a little later on some of the differences between a 75% guarantee and a 100% guarantee from a cost and structure perspective. So what we have then, we have this $1,000 sitting here invested. When it's invested, really one of two things can happen. We can make money or we can lose money. So let's start with the worst case scenario. Let's say we invest that $1,000 and we don't do very well. Our $1,000 falls in value such that on our maturity date, our investment is worth just $540. Okay, that's not good. Nobody wants to lose money. But it's not as bad as it could be because of the maturity guarantee. That is, if the annuitant waits until the 7th of August of 2022 to access those funds, then the annuitant receives not $540, they don't get the value of the contract at that point, rather they can, by waiting, take advantage of that maturity guarantee. So the annuitant receives here actually $750. And a question that you'll sometimes see around this on the exam is, what is the value of the guarantee? Well, basically, without the guarantee, the annuitant would have received $540. But because of the guarantee, the annuitant received $750. The guarantee, we could suggest, was responsible for putting an extra $210 into the annuitant's hands. The difference between the contract value or the market value and the guarantee, which is based on $1,000 times 75%. Now, let's say that our investment doesn't go terribly wrong. We actually make some money here. And the type of investment we have is going to determine the extent to which this will happen. In a very safe investment, you probably wouldn't see big swings like this, but in an equity type of investment, you might see big swings up or down with your market value. So let's say that we do well and that by time we reach maturity, our investment is worth $2,240. Well, in this case, the contract still matures. We're still at that end point for that contract, but now the annuitant is not even really going to notice the guarantees. The annuitant is simply going to receive that $2,240. No worries here. And the annuitant doesn't really care about the guarantee in this case. The guarantee is only useful when you've lost money. We could argue that the guarantee was, at least from a strictly dollars and cents point of view, worthless here. Now I'll show you later on the value of the guarantee from a psychological or investor behavior perspective, but the guarantee, as far as dollars and cents, is really worthless. And to show you that, the annuitant could have decided to take funds out earlier. Maybe they decided to take their funds out a month earlier when the value of the investment was only $2,200. They could have done that. It would have ended the contract, but they would have gotten their money. Just like a mutual fund, you can take your funds out at any time. Conversely, while this fund was on the downslide, maybe the annuitant decided they want their money when the fund value was at, let's say, $580. They could have done so, but they would have annulled any value attached to the guarantee. So we see, in a similar manner to a mutual fund, that our segregated fund counts on these values going up or down accordingly.